Hello, this is Charlotte Peyton with Tallo. I am the Secondary Education Partner Specialist. Some of you may not be familiar with Tallo. So what is Tallo? Everyone has a skill, interest, or ability that someone else is looking for. Tallo is where the next generation of talent can overcome traditional barriers and connect with opportunities anytime, anywhere. Our Director of Education Initiatives, Emily Todd, is going to walk us through what that means for educators, counselors, and students.
Hi, everyone. Charlotte, thanks so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to get to speak to you all about Tallo, a little bit about myself. I am a former high school and middle school science teacher. I grew up and taught in the state of South Carolina, which is where Tallo's headquarters is. And I've been at Tallo for just over 3 years now. And before we get started with the Q&A, just a little bit about Tallo for those of you who might be here and be unsure of what Tallo is or how your school might be able to use it. Tallo is an online platform that secondary students, grades 8 through 12, can use to build an online digital portfolio. And through that portfolio, they can discover meaningful career pathways and find out more about their own interests and how that applies to the world of work, as well as make meaningful college and career connections, organize all that they're doing inside the classroom and outside the classroom in one place, and connect to opportunities like internships, apprenticeships, scholarships, college and career fairs, and so much more. I have the pleasure of working with high schools across the country, and we're going to talk about what some of that work looks like today. But some of the really big reasons that schools like to use us are to better understand their students' interests and goals, guide their students and help them grow as professionals, and also tracking their students over time and analyzing their school programs, how effective they are, or possibly new programs they need to add. And I know Charlotte's got some questions prepared about that as well. But the biggest thing I want to let everyone know today is that implementing Tallo at your school is easy. We're a team of former educators, Charlotte, myself, and our other teammates. And our goal is to help Tallo meet your school's needs, coming up with a customized implementation plan with your school team to better learn about your students and your school's initiatives. We make custom resources and use our own library of resources to help you use Tallo within the classroom, within student organizations, as well as in school counseling. We build it into programming that might already exist at your school or help you find programming that it could support Tallo. And then you get to help mentor your students along the way and see how they grow from maybe early high school and on through their adult life, which is really powerful and meaningful to see. So that's a really quick overview of what I get to do every day with schools and students across the country. And I'll pass it back to you, Charlotte, with a few questions.
All right, excellent. And yes, I forgot to introduce myself thoroughly. I was so busy introducing Tallo, but I'm Charlotte and I was an educator for 10 years. I worked in high school, taught English and publication. So education is near and dear to my heart. I'm also a parent of 3 recent high school graduates. So as a parent, I'm also very invested in education. So for you, Emily, some questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about the South Carolina implementation? If I understand correctly, that was the first statewide implementation across high schools.
Yeah, you've got that right. So we got started as a company about 10 years ago, and our first major initiative is called the South Carolina Future Makers Initiative, which is a partnership between Tallo and the South Carolina Department of Commerce, the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance, and high schools across the state. Essentially, together, we are working together to eliminate brain drain. So talent leaving our state after getting really great skills or credentials or being educated in the state of South Carolina, and also to raise awareness for in-demand industries in our state. So some of those include advanced manufacturing and healthcare. So it's really cool to see industry and education together. We got started 5 years ago working really closely with the state and implementing across high schools across South Carolina. It started out with us actually going into schools and visiting those schools, learning about those students, helping those teachers and school counselors implement Tallo by doing rollouts is what we called them. So we would actually bring everyone into an auditorium and have them join Tallo. We have really grown since then. So this started out with no one in South Carolina knowing what Tallo was and a really small user population. And now we have a statewide population of over 100,000 users just in South Carolina, connecting to opportunities from 8th grade through adulthood. We no longer have to drive around and talk to students in an auditorium because we've built out a library of resources that aligns really well with South Carolina's individual graduation plan guidelines and the profile of a high school graduate. So school counselors can actually take what we have and directly align it to what they're doing with their students. Same with CTE teachers that are teaching students about those in-demand industries that our Department of Commerce especially is using Tallo to promote. And it's a really great ecosystem that we're fueling here in the state that almost fuels itself now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I do see some questions coming in, and I'm going to hold those till the end and do a little Q&A at the end of the session. So you've talked a little bit about education and CTE programs. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you've seen counselors or counselors' offices using Tallo with their students?
Yeah, great question. I mean, every school counselor is striving to help their students find success in their life after high school. And that is different for every single student. One of my favorite things about Tallo is that the opportunities are limitless, and it's a platform for any type of student, whether you're going straight into work, going to college, or unsure of what you want to do or want to join the military. Your Tallo profile becomes what you want it to be, a representation of you and what your goals are and who you are, what you're passionate about. So school counselors get really excited that it's not necessarily a one size fits all. Students can go on and create their profile. It's self-driven by the student. So it really helps them develop that intrinsic motivation to put in more about themselves and their interests. It doesn't necessarily have to be academic focused. And then as they put in their goals and their interests and what they're doing in and outside of the classroom, we show them opportunities or match them with opportunities, or might invite students to career-related events or college-related events that match and align with their individual goals. We've created resources, like I mentioned before, for South Carolina that really correlates with what counselors are doing each year in their individual graduation plan meetings with their students, and gives the student the ability to reflect that type of goal into their Tallo portfolio, and then even make connections for their next steps beyond that. So that might be connecting to colleges, connecting to scholarships, connecting to apprenticeship programs, full-time jobs, or even finding out about different branches of the military.
Fabulous. So this is one of the questions that, oh, hold on, sorry. We have a lot of student organizations that are using Tallo as well. So my question to you is, can you give us some examples of how organizations like AVID or HOSA are using Tallo with their students?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's really cool to see students that are really involved in these different organizations on Tallo. I know I've learned a lot about student organizations in my 3 years here, but we work with a lot of the major CTSOs as well as other student organizations that operate in and outside of schools. So you mentioned HOSA, which is the largest health science student organization in the country that high school students and college students participate in and get really awesome health science experiences before they even graduate high school. HOSA uses us to first recognize all of their student members across the country so they can join Tallo. They can actually earn digital badges for being a member in HOSA or competing in their competitive events. And that's a way to showcase their involvement to Tallo's network of partners that might be college, companies, others, organizations, or training partners. But they can also apply for all of HOSA's competitive events and scholarships through Tallo's opportunities page. So it's a place for those students to come in and show off what they're doing in HOSA and also connect to even more HOSA opportunities. And with Avid, we work really closely with them to help their students connect to opportunities beyond high school. We worked really closely with Avid to integrate Tallo into their curriculum. So students in classes in school are actually using Tallo to record what they're doing in Avid, set goals, and then connect to things like scholarships or colleges, college fairs, internships, but keeping all of the great things they're doing in and outside of those programs in one place. And it's a similar story for the other organizations we work with, like Future Business Leaders of America, for example, or JAG. The list goes on, but ultimately it's a great place to showcase what you do in and outside of the classroom. You don't age out, so you can keep it with you even after you graduate and show off those really cool experiences like what you're doing in your clubs and organizations.
So this is also a way that students are finding their way onto Tallo, even if the school isn't officially implementing Tallo through their counseling office or their classroom. Students are getting on there through their organizations.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Anyone can go sign up for Tallo. So if you work with a student and you want them to create a profile, all they have to do is go to tallo.com. And for students, it's always free. You never age out. So a lot of our students find us because they're online searching for scholarships, or they're a member of these organizations and they're joining because they want more information or to stay connected with that organization.
Wonderful. So that leads me to the next question, which is, can you share some student success stories, things that you've seen and experienced in your tenure?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned in my early days at Tallo, I spent a lot of my time on the road. So I drove to schools, went and worked in classrooms throughout the day and got to meet students that were joining Tallo or students that already had Tallo profiles, as well as their teachers. And it was really cool. It's one of the things about the pandemic that I've maybe missed the most, is being able to go into schools and meet our users and hear from them. The story that sticks out the most to me, and we actually have a blog post about it, is about a student named Elijah, who I had the pleasure to meet when he was in 11th grade. I went to his high school in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, to help his engineering robotics class join Tallo. He was a really go-getter student, so he already had a Tallo profile and was showing me all about it, but made it really clear to me that day that his goals were to be an aerospace engineer and take what he was learning in high school and in his organization, which is First Robotics, which is another Tallo partner, and use that to help him get college scholarships, as well as land a career at Boeing, which, if you live in South Carolina, Boeing is one of the largest employers here, and he knew a lot about Boeing. So we stayed connected. I got to visit his high school again his senior year, and he had actually just gotten his acceptance letter to Embry-Riddle, which is a college he heard about on Tallo, and they have an amazing aerospace engineering program. So it was kind of bittersweet. He was so excited to get accepted. However, being an out-of-state student and a student that was from a single parent home, he was kind of concerned about how to pay for that. He had been accepted to in-state options and was just kind of weighing out, what should I do? Do I want to take on all this debt? But I have these big dreams and I want to be an aerospace engineer, and this program seems perfect for me. So he ended up applying for a really cool opportunity on Tallo that we do every year called Boeing STEM Signing Day, which Boeing uses to recognize high school seniors across the country that are interested in pursuing STEM, whether that be in an apprenticeship, a 2-year college, or a 4-year college. So Elijah actually was accepted into that. It's a pretty competitive event to be recognized in. In South Carolina, they take 2 students per county, so less than 100 students are chosen each year. He got to go to the state house and be recognized in front of the legislative body, meet executives from Boeing and major employers from across the state that is trying to connect with this talent sooner so that they want to come work with them in an internship or when they get out of college, for example. So that day he got to meet executives from Boeing and share his story with them. And I have to say they were really moved. So really cool story that came full circle. He was chosen to be a Boeing scholar at Embry-Riddle after that. So he is now there on a completely free ride. He's a rising junior at Embry-Riddle. He has a really cool internship at Rolls-Royce now. And I think he's going to change the world. He's already changed part of the world to me. I've learned so much from him. So really incredible student. And it's been really cool to see all these different stepping stones of how Tallo helped him along the way to be successful. And there are students like that every day. I wish I got to meet them all in person like I did with Elijah, but I've got to meet students that, felt pressure to go to college from their parents, but connected to employers on Tallo that had a perfect apprenticeship program to them that actually aligned with maybe a class they were taking at their CTE center, where they actually got to use a skill that they enjoyed and then change their whole plan because they realized they can make a great living without having to go take on debt from college. So there's just a few student success stories. I recommend checking out our blog as well as looking up our Good Morning America appearance. If you just Google Tallo Good Morning America, it will come up. We had a student this past year that got an incredible scholarship to college. It was over $50,000, and it was incredibly moving. Her name is Lyric, and if you're like me and you like a good cry, I recommend watching that video too.
That's wonderful. I actually have goosebumps listening to those stories. I think as educators, nothing can make you happier than seeing students succeed and having those opportunities. So thank you for sharing that. And we did put the link to the blog and the Good Morning America in the chat. So if you're looking for that. All right, my final question for you before we open the Q&A period. What is your favorite Tallo feature or activity?
That's a great question. My favorite feature is the ability to download your profile into a resume. And I joke about this with every teacher I get to meet. When I was teaching high school, my school had an initiative that every student would have a resume by the time they graduated high school. I had never taught someone how to make a resume as a really young teacher, and teaching students the formatting aspect was not easy on really outdated computers that my school district had. So that's my funny joke, but it's really serious. You can click download and download a Tallo profile into a perfectly formatted resume. And I wish I had had that. I know my students wish they had had that when they were going through my class, but there are endless amazing features about Tallo. My favorite thing about being a part of the Tallo team is exactly what we were just saying about the students' stories. I think sometimes when I meet with schools, they don't realize how invested I get in their students and the success of their students. And I love having the chance to get to meet students from across the country, from all walks of life, that are just using Tallo to show who they are and what they're passionate about. We have some incredible users on Tallo, over 1.7 million of them, but our future world leaders, are people that are going to change the world for the better, are on this platform now. And it's really exciting to see them grow.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a couple of questions, so I'm going to go into those, and some you've already touched on, but I'm going to ask them anyway, just to have clear answers for our attendees. So what type of exploration tool do you have for the students who don't know what they're interested in?
I love that question. I can so relate. When I was in high school and even in college, I was really lost as to what I wanted to do because I had so many interests and I didn't know how that applied. We have a really cool purpose and meaning career fit and exploration tool. So it's an assessment and a tool that students can use if their school partners with us, where they can take a series of assessments that take less than 20 minutes. This is a scientifically validated and patented assessment that actually won the National Science Foundation's Career Compass Award in 2019. But it takes into account a student's interests and personality, but also workplace preferences and values, which I think are conversations we're not having soon enough with students about what they actually want from an employer or what their future company could look like and what they could get out of the world of work. But then they can explore careers. It aligns really well to ONET, so they can explore pathways and then individual jobs within those pathways. I absolutely love it. It was really cool for me to see that my top 2 pathways were education, which I used to be a teacher and I'm so passionate about education, and then technology. So it's really cool now that I'm a mold of those 2, working for a technology company that serves schools every day. But it is an incredible resource that I think everyone should have at their fingertips.
Fabulous. And that is appropriate for students 13 and older, correct? So they can start doing that in the 8th grade.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. How do I get my students signed up on Tallo?
Great question. If you want your students to join Tallo, all they have to do is go to tallo.com and click sign up. If you want to get more resources, we'll have Charlotte's information up in just a second so that you can reach out to her if your school is interested in partnering with us, if you want to know more about the different resources we can provide to your school, as well as if you want to find out more about that assessment we were just talking about. But just to have students join, just have them go to tallo.com and click sign up in the top right-hand corner.
Perfect. Do students keep access to their Tallo profile once they graduate?
Great question. So we like to say that you never age out of Tallo. Your Tallo profile grows with you. So students do keep access to it since everything is self-reported by the student. So once they move on past your school, maybe they go to college or get a job, they can update their profile to showcase that they're a college student or in the workforce or in the military. However, you can stay connected with them as an alumni of your school, but they never age out. They just grow with it. So never hit a paywall or anything like that. It's just a place for them to be able to refer back and have that portfolio of everything they've done in one place.
And so what you're saying too is that that means the schools still have the ability to reach out to those students as long as they have their Tallo profile active.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. All right. How long do you think it takes for a student to make a profile roughly?
Great question. To get signed up, it takes about 10 minutes or less. It's 6 questions in our welcome flow. So when a student joins to when they access their profile, I would say that's about 10 minutes or less. We just are asking questions like, what career interests do you have? What do you think you'd like to do after high school? Are there any places that you'd like to live or interested in living someday? That's kind of helping us make the framework for your profile. But to have a really detailed portfolio that has every possible section complete, I would say that is something more that your students would work on over time and probably not in one sitting. So we have a lot of resources that help break the Tallo profile down into sections so students can hone in on just their extracurricular activities or just classes they've taken, or perhaps just creating a great about me video. So we have programming for schools that can do this over the course of a few weeks or even stretching it out over the course of a school year. I encourage students to log into their Tallo profiles several times a month to every other month, just depending on their age, to keep it up to date. But to sign up, super simple, less than 10 minutes. To create a really awesome profile and have every section complete, that might take a little bit more time, just depending on how your school is looking to implement it.
Well, and I would imagine too that a 13-year-old has a lot less to add to it than someone who's applying to colleges. So 100%. I would imagine that grows over time.
Yeah.
Perfect. So can I make a profile to view my students' Can I make a profile to view my students' profile to offer feedback or tips?
That's a really good question. So you can make a profile to basically be a person in the workforce on Tallo looking for opportunities. So like I mentioned, you never age out of Tallo. We have users on Tallo that are connecting to full-time jobs, even that are out of college or completely in the workforce. If you want to view your students, there are 2 options. The first is just having your students add you as a mentor. All you can see is their profile, which is view only access. You can't edit anything for them. And there isn't a messaging capability there. However, if you want to see some of that really detailed analytics, like we talked about before, longitudinal tracking, and be able to see all of your students, add them to tagged groups like your classes, that is an additional option, which you should definitely reach out to Charlotte about. Her contact information is here. She can show you how your school account can be created. There's a cost associated with that to set up that account and give you reports based on your school's individual needs, but it gives you a lot more data there on your current and alumni populations.
Thank you. And we have the question, is there a cost for students? But we've addressed that. Let's say it one more time.
No cost for students.
Do you have, or do we have any upcoming events we can share with our students?
Oh, I love that question. And I hope Alexa will be able to drop it in the chat for us. So we do have virtual career fairs that are a little different than maybe a career fair you're familiar with. It's all through our matching app where students actually take a customized quiz about their unique goals and preferences. And then that on the day of the event, they're matched with participating colleges or companies. So we actually have our first segment of the College Fair of the Year coming up in February. It's completely free for your students. We have colleges from across the country that are joining, and this is open to all high school students. It's just meant to be a low stakes environment for students to start thinking about their future, maybe connect to a school they've never heard of before, or a school that aligns with programs they're really interested in, and find out more. They can chat live with admissions professionals during that event, and then stay connected after to learn more about financial aid, scholarships, a day in the life in college. That's one of many of those events. We also have STEM season coming up, which is a several week long event we're doing with lots of our partners to focus in on the STEM industries and opportunities in STEM. I definitely recommend you give us a follow on social media, stay connected to us. We have an Educator newsletter as well. So you always know what events we have coming up. We love to share those with our Educator contacts.
Thank you. How do students find scholarships on Tallo? And also, how can I see their profiles to help them?
Awesome question. So for the scholarships aspect, there's two avenues. So there are scholarships that are hosted on Tallo, only for Tallo users, that are hosted by us or our partners. So for example, like I mentioned before, HOSA hosts their scholarships on Tallo. So their students have to sign up and then click the opportunities tab to find the HOSA scholarships. They're all in the scholarship section. But we also have a phenomenal tool on the student dashboard, which is through our partner Red Kite. So it's the top section of the student's dashboard, which is kind of like their home screen. It is a scholarship matching search engine that essentially takes a look at a student's Tallo profile, looks at everything the students told us about themselves. So what they want to do after high school, maybe what schools they are interested in, what they want to pursue as a major, clubs they're in, extracurricular activities they have, and then it shows them scholarships based on their unique interests and goals. So I know when I log into mine, it says I'm matching to over $1 million in scholarships. It updates every single day. You don't have to be a senior to apply for them. It will only show you scholarships you're eligible for that you can apply for that day. So from there, students can apply directly. They can also answer additional questions about financial aid or FAFSA that we don't capture, but it does in the Red Kite applications. And we've had students earn between $20,000 and $30,000 just through using this one tool. It's taught me that there are a lot of scholarships out there. It's just we don't always know how to find them. And Red Kite makes finding scholarships super easy. I also love to put the plug out there to educators that there are scholarships out there for graduate school. So a teacher I worked with in my first year of Tallo just made a Tallo profile to see what her students would see when creating a profile, and she ended up matching to a scholarship for her master's degree through Red Kite.
That's a great story. Couple more questions. I know we're almost at time. So can I create my own badges for my students?
I love that question, and I love when schools do this. Yes. Definitely reach out to Charlotte about how your school can partner with Tallo. But once your school has an account on Tallo, you can create badges for your students. And many of our school partners do this to showcase their students' unique achievements that are specific to their school or their district initiatives, or perhaps a particular club or organization that their school has. We love to see this. Students get really excited about digital badges, and our college and company partners love to learn more about your school's programs. And it's a way for us to help you make your own little mini ecosystem, like what I was talking about in South Carolina before. So we'd love to talk to you about digital badging for your school.
Perfect. And what type of opportunities do you have for non-college bound students?
Yeah, great question. So like I mentioned before, the opportunities on Tallo really are don't limit you based on what you want to do after high school. In South Carolina, like I mentioned before, a lot of those opportunities that we work with this Department of Commerce on are for students that are not interested in going to college. But we have a really awesome jobs and internship board that students can use to search through internships and jobs, all based on the level of education that they'd like to receive or not receive. We also work with a lot of really great training partners and employers that are looking for students that have CTE experience or certifications or want to hit the workforce right after they graduate. So by students telling us what their next steps goals are when they create their profile, that helps us match them to opportunities for apprenticeships, for example, or a training opportunity that might be perfect to them and align with their goals, or for them to search on their own through our jobs and internships feed.
Fabulous. It is 3:30. There are a couple of questions left in the other chat that didn't get answered, but I will individually email those answers to the questions. So I'm so sorry that we didn't get to those. Thank you so much, Emily, for sharing your firsthand experience with Tallo in the schools. I love hearing these stories of success. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to send me an email.
Thank you, Charlotte. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Emily.